Welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next. If you're not too careful, you just might learn something.
Hi there, and welcome to MacGyver's Workshop, where you never know what we're going to be working on next, and if you're not too careful, you just might learn something. Today's episode, we're going to be doing some repairs to my son-in-law's trailer here. We have to put a new hitch on the front here. It's time to pass this one on to someone, and we're going to go ahead and fix it up, clean it up. Got to run some new lighting wiring, and we'll check all the bearings and the hubs and all that kind of stuff and get her going. So let's get started. So we're going to have to go ahead and cut this piece off here. It kind of lays over the two arms of the tongue that come forward. So rather than try and grind this out, I'm going to go ahead and just blast it out with a cutting torch. But first I'm going to have to go ahead and get these chains off of here. We'll do that and get them coming out of here. There we go. All right. This is actually a very good place to mount your chains, because in the event that you ever did have a disconnect from the tow vehicle, you know it'll pull straight on the center of the trailer and it won't be bobbing back and forth on you. So we'll get our chain out of there, and old fire wrench will make quick work of that. So let's get that going here. Now, we have the old hitch off of the front of the trailer. I don't recommend trying to do it with a grinder. You're liable to be all day at it. Just a fire wrench with the torch is the best way to go. And then when you get it off, make sure you grind everything nice and clean so you have good conductivity for your MIG weld. And what we've done now is, trial fit it, make sure it goes in all the way and goes in far enough to fit snug both ways. You don't want a big gap, trying to fill in with weld. And then what I like to do is drill a couple of holes in the top and weld them to the trailer, just for good measure, and so I don't have to try and go and weld up over my head underneath. And there's a little gap here, so I've cut a little piece of steel that will get us in there and get us to where we can fill that gap in really good. And we'll weld that in, and then we'll weld the all the way across here rather than just here and here. So the first thing we're going to have to do is get our piece welded on down here. Always want to make sure you clean a little piece of metal off so you got a good place to put your ground clamp. And then scrape it back and forth a little bit. way you make sure you get a good solid weld. And always remember, grind all your edges so you have good conductivity. Otherwise, you'll have a crappy weld. We got her welded on there all good. And the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna weld me a little tube right here to protect the trailer wiring. Just a piece of old conduit will do just fine, but make sure you grind the galvanizing off of it. Otherwise it'll smell really bad while you're trying to weld, and it's not exactly good for you either. Now I'm just going to get me a tack weld on here just to hold this tube in here good. You don't need much. There, that'll do. I'll just go a little bit further to protect that trailer wiring. Now that we have our trailer coupler back on here, all nice and new and spiffy, we can move on to getting this thing ready to sell. Now, I talked with my son-in-law, and he couldn't find the tongue jack, nor could he find any of the ramps. And I kind of told him, I said, well, it's going to be kind of hard to sell a trailer like this with no ramps and no tongue jack. So, needless to say, I hate putting it out there for next to no money, and with a slight investment, it'll be good to go and much more useful for somebody without a bunch of fuss, because not everybody has a workshop where they can weld up a set of ramps or what have you. So, needless to say, I went shopping and got an appropriate tongue jack for it. We got some metal to make us a nice set of ramps to go on the back of it. And we got wheel lugs to fix all the busted or missing lug studs around the two axles. And then we got a new lighting kit and some clearance lights, all LEDs of course, because, well, what was there is pretty much rubbish. And I don't understand what the fascination is with duct tape for wire and electricians, house electricians, plastic wire nuts. I don't get it. You know, I understand that it's clever for a quick roadside fix, but you know, when it becomes a status quo, well, I don't know. I just don't agree with that. My OCD just runs with me on that. So, needless to say, we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to do it upright. So whoever gets this trailer, now they're going to pay a fair price for it, more than what we could have practically given it away for it as it were, but it'll be ready to hook up and go anywhere you want. You know, we're going to service the axles and the hubs and the bearings and grease them and check them and all that good stuff. And it's got 4 practically brand new tires on it. So I think investing a little tiny bit of money into it is worthwhile, not just for us being able to maybe sell it for a little more money, but to whomever buys it too. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to fix up all the mangled sheet metal as best we can. We're not going to get it perfect. I don't have any expectation of that, but we'll make it look a whole lot nicer anyway. And we will get, kind of wire wheel this thing down and get it cleaned up so we can paint it. And I'll get the underside painted first, and then we'll lower it down, and it can be curing while we're working on like the wheel hubs and the bearings and the wheel studs and things like that. Now, marker lights on this thing. This is kind of what's left of the front, or clearance light, if you will. And they had it mounted underneath here, and as you can see, it was all flattened up because I guess they run over something and, you know, maybe hit a dirt berm or something, and just flattened it up in there. I had to cut it out with a torch, and it's a good idea in theory, I guess, but in actual practice, just thin sheet metal is not gonna, you know, stand getting hit, and it's really got no business being underneath where it can strike something. So what we're going to do is we're going to MacGyver up something to just really ironclad bulletproof this clearance light. So unless somebody specifically can get in there and bash it, for the most part, it will, you know, stay in one piece. So what we've done is we've basically taken 2 pieces of angle and welded them, you know, stitched them together. And you can see where I welded right there. And then I drilled through for the wires and the 2 holes for the, you know, the little LED light. And then kind of shaved a 45 here. And what we're going to do is we're going to come right on this upright here. I drilled a hole in this upright. All this is just a piece of angle that's kind of welded onto the side that makes your upright. But we can put this on here like so, and it'll be up to where it won't get struck. You know, if you run the trailer, you drag it over a berm or something like that, or a, you know, big lump in the ground or what have you. And, you know, it'll be kind of armored, so to speak, and protected. And then we'll just have another little piece of angle welded here to give it some support and strength on the back side. So you'll see once we get it done, I'm having to use like 2 hands to hold it in place. But once we get it in there, it'll look good. A lot better than what it was. Now, I've got all my welding stuff that I'm gonna have to weld on the frame of the trailer done. I got the little clearance lights, got those made in. I got new brackets for the tail lights back there. And now we can hit it with a little bit of paint and start seeing a little bit of, you know, results, seeing something for our efforts here. We'll just use a Rust-Oleum implement paint, which is very forgiving. It doesn't require a lot of you know, prep work or anything like that to give you a good solid finish and to stick real good. And plus it's a rust protectant too, so. So we got her all painted up. I think it looks a whole heck of a lot better than it did before. We've got the new tongue jack in here. And right now what I'm doing is I'm going through all the hubs and making sure re-greasing all the wheel bearings and all. So when this thing meets its new owner, it'll be ready to rock and roll. So we're gonna get busy on that. While I've got those hubs off, I'll press those new wheel studs in there too, as there's a couple missing on this side. There's one or two missing on that side, and then 2 or 3 of them got replaced with metric studs, and they're all mismatched. So we're gonna fix all that too while we're at it. We're at the point now where I have the decking installed, and we've got it bolted down properly. It's the original decking was had nails driven through the boards just ahead of the crossbars, and you know, truth be told, it works. The boards will not slide out, and they'd have to really bounce up high to clear those, you know, 3-inch framing nails or whatever. But my OCD won't allow me to do something like that, so I've got them with the round-headed shoulder bolts, and they're bolted down real good up to the front here. They're all cut. All the boards are cut to the same length, so it's nice and even, and they tuck up under the lip here to hold in place. It's a little bit hard to see, but back here I went ahead and put a piece of angle across so that when you drive up onto the trailer, you're not boogering up the ends of your wood here. So next step is we're going to go ahead and make our ramps, and we are not going to make those POS ramps like you see that come with these trailers when you buy them. Finally, now I'm ready to actually weld my ramp together. Now it's very important that you first set up a jig so that both of your ramps are identical, and also you need to clamp this thing down 8 ways to Sunday, because as soon as you start welding, the metal's going to try and distort on you and move. You'll see I'm holding this down with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 clamps, and it may seem like a lot, but it's going to be just barely enough to, you know, keep this thing in place while we're welding on it. As we get parts of this ramp tack welded together, then we can start removing some of this more bulky stuff that we've got holding everything down to where we can get to it and do our finish welding. Once we have it tacked together, and just holding it down in the corners and maybe one across the middle will be sufficient to keep it from distorting any. I've made the little cross pieces that go across are in essentially 3 sections, and that's so that the cross piece lines up even with the ramp itself. and you don't have like a little gully in there. And now it's just a matter of finish welding everything else. Wow, that was a lot of welding. Whew. Well, we're all done. I've got it all painted up here. We're gonna let it dry, and then we're gonna take it outside and shoot some drone video around it and take some pictures to put it up online for sale. Now we've basically taken a well-worn, very used trailer that had some issues. You know, first and foremost, I'll show you here on the hitch coupler. If I can, I don't know if I can even get this to where you can do that, but you can see where the ball was popping through the top of the coupler here. Bad juju there. And of course, you know, all the mechanism and everything inside is rubbish. This is a piece of the A-frame where your tongue jack would go, and you can see how it was all pooched out, and that was just as this A-frame and coupler rusted. It got thin, it got weak, and you know, you put a heavy car on there or whatever, and it just pushed up through. Not good. But of course, the new coupler and everything comes with all new metal in around there where our tongue jack would go. And we reinforced it just to be extra safe. And the front side marker lights, they just kind of had these welded up underneath the frame, and they were just all bent and flattened and squished and all that. So we made some improvements to the design there, and made some guards for them, and of course converted all to all LED, and new tail lights on the back. The original just had the tail lights bolted to the fender, which kind of had them cocked off at a weird angle facing up. So we made some new brackets, and used the low profile submersible, kind of like boat trailer tail lights. That took care of that problem. And then we had to straighten out some sheet metal there on the fenders. You know, those fenders are kind of thin, and you know, any trailer, they get all beat to heck, and so while necessarily a metalsmith, I am not, but I got it pretty decent. At least it looks like a wheel fender now, instead of a, you know, something out of Jerry Lewis. But anyway, new chains. We put the new chains on the front, and gave it a good shot of paint, and made sure our wood decking is all in good order. Trailer's got 4 near brand new tires on it. I'd say they're less than a year old. So yeah, this thing is definitely ready to go on and meet its new owner. I think they'll be happy with it. And one of the things that I'm kind of happy with in the design of this, and of course it made the project go sideways and take me way longer than I expected, but that's okay, because I knew I wanted to do 5-foot ramps instead of 4. Why? All these trailer places sell you ramps that are 4 feet long, because invariably you end up catching right here on something, because the attack angle's too steep when you're loading. So I made 5-foot ramps, and then I made these support feet that will automatically just, they pivot. So when you lay the ramp down, this little foot comes out and gives some extra support right there. So you don't end up with sway back ramps and, you know, it trying to pick the front of your trailer up or the back of your vehicle up when you're loading something on there. So I'm kind of proud of that. And through careful design of these ramps, this is all the waste we ended up with. So metal right up there with lumber right now. They're real proud of that stuff. But you know, the trailer is worth nothing if you don't have ramps for it. So and these ramps here, you don't have to worry about a place to put them or tie them down. You know, they're hinged to the back of the trailer. They slide back and forth. You know, so you got all different kinds of, you know, flexibility there to load anything from a 4-wheeler to a, you know, a small farm tractor. And you know, it's also got the extra hitch ball mount here. Not ever really sure why they thought of that. To me, it wouldn't seem safe pulling this trailer and then another trailer behind it, but you know, I didn't build this thing originally, so I can't speak to it. But and oh, and there's one other thing that I did too here is I put a piece of angle right here at the edge of this wood. It didn't have one before, and the edges of that wood are starting to get kind of beat up. So this way it'll protect that, and of course it helps hold everything down too. So you know, the wood's bolted in there nice and snug, but still has room to expand and contract. You know, once it's out, rains, gets wet, the wood's going to swell up. You know, you don't want it locked in there so tight that when it expands, it starts breaking stuff. So, all right. And then the other thing, which I thought was something that was necessary, is on this type of trailer where you have these ramps that, you know, that are pivoting, and you have a bar here that retains and holds them up. Of course, I've got it set for where you can do it in 2 positions. So if you got something that's just a little tiny bit long, you can use the lower mount here, and then these will stow like about here. But the other thing is the retention bar here. You know, it's like a 5-minute thing. You would think that people who build trailers would think about this, but just put a little bracket right here, so that when you're unhooking this, you can lay it back here, and it sticks up where you can get a hold of it easy and, you know, put it back. Instead of it flopping all the way back down into the deck of the trailer where it's got mud and dirt and everything, and then you're trying to fish it out with your fingernail and all that kind of stuff. Just kind of, you know, just a little thoughtful touch that I added in there just for the sake of that. And of course, so all the wiring's new on this thing, and we made a maximum effort to protect the wiring both underneath the trailer and up around the taillights, so it won't get torn out easy. So, all right, I'm gonna roll her outside and shoot some drone footage and take pictures for the ad. So let's get to it. Okay, well that's it for this video. I appreciate y'all watching, and if you like what you see, please subscribe. Like I said, you never know what we're going to be getting into next here at MacGyver's Workshop. Please feel free to comment. Click the little bell icon so you're notified when we put new videos up. You can also email me if you wish at MacGyver'sWorkshop@gmail.com. And tune in to our website, which is www.MacGyver'sWorkshop.net. We're getting that ramped up and starting to post some more things out there. And check that out if you would. And well, we'll see you next time. Take care. Be safe.